Order. I'm going to make a few comments here at the beginning. This situation was brought to our attention at our budget meeting earlier this year. The board has been provided a tremendous amount of information, which we have reviewed numerous times. We have read emails, talked on the phone, and met as a board in various Zoom meetings. This board represents the entire county. Personally, I taught school in this county for 33 years and loved my job and the students that I taught. I always wanted to provide the best education possible for every student. This board is very much child-centered, and thus the process has been extremely difficult for us. It has been a very stressful time for each of us. We certainly want to provide the very best educational opportunities possible for every child in Caldwell County. Dr. Phipps, turn it over to you.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. I have some notes, and Kathy Chandler's grabbing those for me. I brought a lot of stuff, but the first 2 pages of my notes I don't have in front of me. I know that I want to begin by saying that the process is difficult. I think everything that we look at with respect to the decisions that will be made have an impact on some group. I think when we're talking about things that we heard over and over again, like commute time, and we heard folks that live close to a school and they're able to get to the school, thank you so much, able to pick up children, those impacts are going to exist if a change is made. And I think the only way not to have those types of impacts is to simply do nothing. And to simply do nothing means that we're not taking care of some of the budget issues that we have. And the question, I think, then becomes, what do we do? I want to start off with my first comments by saying, we had a public hearing on Monday night. And that was a difficult process to sit through because there are a lot of emotions. There are a lot of things that were said. I think public hearings can stir emotions and passions, and I think sometimes they lead to things that are said that are difficult for some folks to hear. The emotions stirred by comments on Monday night depend really upon the perspective of the listener and how an individual reacts to that. On the flip side, I think the emotions threaded in the speaker's comments reflect their unique perspectives and have to be valued as well. I want to stress the pride that I have in our schools, all of our schools. Each school is unique and has to deal with some interesting challenges. I also want to stress that judging a school, or any school for that matter, simply by a report card grade does not tell the entire story. I have said in my entire time here that there's more to a child, there's more to a teacher, there's more to a school than a grade. And I hope our public realizes that we have to look deeper at all the things that are going on. You have to be in a school to see and appreciate the many things that are happening. A simple letter grade doesn't tell the whole story. This is certainly true for Oak Hill, but I also want to say it's true for Kings Creek, Dudley Shoals, Lower Creek, and every other school that we have in our school system. Even if a report card grade is strong, it fails to represent the vast number of great things that are happening. And I'm proud of the work that our teachers are doing and the education that our students are getting. The day after the public hearing, I heard a lot of comments, and I felt that some of the schools and that some folks felt that schools and communities were pitted against one another. And I know that a lot of that was the passion and the emotion that came out. I cherish the support that I feel in our communities. To me, it makes Caldwell the special place that it is. I hope that we stand together to support all of our students after whatever decision is made, and that we'll be proud of our school system. Your support is critical to the work that we do, and we are always ready to hear any suggestions or ideas to improve our work. And if students end up moving from one school to another, my commitment is the first thing to do is to work with the administration at the receiving schools along with faculty and staff to make sure that we reach out to any of the students that are coming to ensure the transition is smooth and that they are welcomed into the new building. I'm also proud of this board for engaging in this work. It's difficult to say the least. Clearly it is. I've heard comments over and over again of folks waking up in the middle of the night and this is on your mind. And trust me, I live that and understand exactly where you're at because it means something to us. As we move beyond the outcome that will ultimately happen for Oak Hill, stay open or closed, we continue to look for additional ways to save funds and operate more efficiently. That's what we have to do to be able to provide resources and services to our students. I want to go through just a basic timeline and where we're at and how we got to this point. And the chairman mentioned this just a few minutes ago. As when we had our audit, and this is just a review for the board, but I want the public to be aware, our auditors were very clear that we could no longer continue to spend fund balance at the level that we were spending it. And you all know that because we've talked about that. And we did quite a bit of work in the first 12 months of trimming about $1.1 million from what we were utilizing out of fund balance. But that left us with a charge of having to trim another $2.5 million. Our cabinet, our leadership teams, suggestions from teachers, members of the community, we looked at everything that we could, services provided, positions that were out there, and we've reduced almost 100 or more positions already, and there'll be a few more that'll continue on. All of that yielded us about $1.5 million. We're still $1 million short. And that's when I came to you all and said that if we're going to go after the full $2.5 million and we need that extra $1 million, we're going to have to look at facilities. And at an administrative level, there are a lot of things that we consider and a lot that we look at. And I assure you that whatever decision is made tonight, that we'll continue to look at things as we move forward, because this is not the end. We have to continue to try to save as much as we can. We proposed budget cuts. We were able to come up with the amount, and for that reason, we suggested the consideration of closing Oak Hill. Not that it be closed, but that we consider the closing of Oak Hill. That's when the board asked us to do a comprehensive study. The law calls that a thorough study. We're using those synonymously for one another. So we began to do quite a bit of work. I mean, we had a meeting with the leadership. My leadership team met with the faculty at Oak Hill School. We felt like it was important for them to hear from us that we were going to be talking about Oak Hill. What I heard was that there have been conversations about Oak Hill in the background for years and years and years, and they really weren't surprised that it came back up again. And I said, well, this is going to be a true conversation that will be public and will involve the budget work that we're doing. We had a budget session that we went through. We mentioned that. We had an Oak Hill community meeting via Zoom, and I regret that we're where we are with COVID-19 just because of the nature of what it does. I want people to be well and not have to deal with things, but it certainly has thrown a wrench in the way that we're having to meet. And but we did what we had to do based on the guidance that we were given and the instructions that were provided. We had a parent meeting. We met with the faculty again via Google Meet, and we're trying to work with them to make sure that they're taken care of if the outcome is that the school be closed. Not at that point that a decision had been made, but Dr. Griffin had to move forward with some HR work and make some hires, and we were trying to be very open in terms of the process and where we were at. Dr. Griffin went on to have some one-on-one meetings with the faculty. We had an advisory team that was put together that did a few sessions. We had a work session that had where a public hearing was set up, and then we ultimately had the public hearing on Monday night. The numbers that we had are about 75% in favor of school closure. We saw that in the advisory team recommendation, and we saw that also in the comments and the things that we heard and read at our public hearing. So that's where that stands. But I think there are concerns that I want to reach out to our board and make sure that whatever decision is made, and as we leave tonight, these are things that we continue to have to look at. And I think, I heard bus routes and commute time. Those are going to be things that will continue to be monitored. Whether a change is made or not, if there's a concern of a bus route being too long or whatever the issue is, if there are too many students on a bus, we will go back and look at those things to make sure that we can adjust where we can so that those are more reasonable, whatever the school is that we're talking about. I heard a lot about wraparound, and I heard through the comments that we had that wraparound needs to be at our schools for our parents. And to me, that's an endorsement of a program that's working well and a service that's needed for our community, and we want to make sure that we continue to look at that. I mentioned already that there are many families that are in close proximity to their schools right now. If any change is made, that may disrupt where individuals are at, and they have to change schedules. That's a hardship that I think we have to be aware of is going to be created no matter what decision is made. Certainly COVID-19 and the way the school year ended, we're not happy with that. If Oak Hill is closed, I know that there's not an opportunity for those students to have an opportunity to say goodbye to individuals in their school, and that hurts me. But I also know that fifth graders that are moving to middle school and other schools and eighth graders that are going to high school don't have that opportunity either. The only difference is that their school will still be there and there'll be some semblance and opportunity for them to do it. But there's a lot of uncertainty that lies ahead. We don't know yet. Today was the first, or Tuesday of this week was the first formal meeting that we've had in the state where we've started to discuss reentry plans for the month of August when school opens back up. We don't know what that's going to look like. And we'll be sharing some information as things come along. So there have been some recommendations from the community that we hold off because of COVID-19. My concern is if we don't move forward, at least with the consideration, that right now, because of the vacancies that we have in our school system, I have the ability to place every Oak Hill faculty member, faculty and staff, into an open vacant slot in our school system. Nobody loses a job. In fact, we've been able to meet with them and ask for their first and second choices if the decision was made to close the school, and we just tentatively have that set up. To wait a year, there's no guarantee where the vacancies will be and whether or not I'll have that ability in a year. I just want you to consider that. I think when we talk about redistricting and we talk about drawing lines and we look at our maps, it's been very clear, and I think you all know, that you can't redistrict without a transfer policy that is more tightly written. You just can't do it. If you redistrict and we have an open enrollment and an open transfer policy, the district lines mean, really all they mean is where our buses travel. So if we're looking at redistricting, there has to be a transfer policy. And it doesn't have to be an all or nothing. I certainly think there could be some criteria that are in place, but that's something that we need to look at and consider. And there's some other things to talk about, and it was mentioned, and there's been some emails that have gone around today that the school system's receiving stimulus money, and the stimulus money can help bridge the gap of where we're at financially. We are receiving some CARES money. The money, in some ways, looks like it's state dollars, but it's actually federal dollars that's flowing through the state. But those dollars are limited. They have a time frame on them, and there are also some significant restrictions that don't allow us just to spend that money as if it were our own. And I want to give you an example. We received $450,000, and this is money that could be used in 5 different areas. It's for feeding students, it's for remote learning, it's for child care, and it's for cleaning and sanitizing buildings and buses and things like that. That money has to be spent by the 30th of June, and we're working on that. And the remote learning is going to be a big piece of what we do. We also have an additional just under $2.3 million. The real number is just under $2.3 million. That money has not come to us yet, and what we've been told is that we're going to be able to apply for that just like we do Title I funding. But there are restrictions and purposes for the use of that money as well, and we don't know exactly what they are, but we know part of that will be disaster relief, part of that will be emotional and social support of students. It will certainly include a remote learning plan. So yes, we're receiving funding, but this is not unrestricted funding that we're just free to spend. I'm also concerned that if we use that as an excuse not to do what needs to be done, we're right back in the exact same place a year from now. And we're continuing to have an issue until we resolve where we're at on our spending side. We've had some conversation that's come up about a 1/4-cent sales tax. And I think that's something that our community, if they would want to rally around that and we get to the point of being able to put that up to be put on the ballot, is something I would certainly entertain working with any group that wanted to do that. The 1/4-cent sales tax obviously would be a countywide sales tax, and the expectation would be that it would be used across the county. We also have been told that there's no guarantee that that would have to be used for educational purposes down the road. So there's some minutia that you get into when you're dealing with that you have to make sure that you take care of. And then there was a recommendation that or a question about scenario number 9, that there had been changes made to scenario number 9. Scenario number 9 was presented to the COG exactly the way that it was written. The numbers that came back, the data that came back was based on the information that was there. I'm not aware of what changed or how it changed, but that was something that I want to make sure that the board is aware of. I don't want you all to vote and any outcome be put into question because you feel like there was some information that was withheld and you didn't know about that. The first thing I would like to request, and I'd like to respectfully request, that the board adopt this comprehensive, thorough study as the final study, and would like to seek that motion.
Do I hear a motion from the board that we approve the comprehensive, thorough study as Dr. Phipps has referred to?
I'm sorry. Was the agenda adopted?
No, it wasn't. It wasn't on here as.
We can just back up.
Okay. Do I hear a motion that we approve the agenda as you have it in front of you?
I move that we approve the agenda as
Is
presented.
there a second?
I second.
All those in favor, say aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? Motion passes. Do I hear a motion that we adopt a comprehensive, thorough study as indicated by Dr. Phipps?
Chairman Pennell, I move that we adopt the comprehensive, thorough study as the final study as has been suggested.
Is there a second?
Second.
Any comments or questions? All those in favor say aye. Aye. Any opposed? And that motion passes.
Thank you. At this point, I'd just simply like to ask the board members if there's any additional information that you feel like you need, or if you have any questions that I can answer at this point. And I know you've had a lot of information. We've put together a tremendous amount of information, maybe more than we needed, but I would much prefer to have more than we needed than to not have enough.
I have a question. If Oak Hill were to remain open next year, based on the number of students that are there, how many teachers would they receive in state allotment?
Based on our projected numbers for next year, without anything changing, they would receive five classroom teacher positions from state allotment. That would cover kindergarten all the way through 8th grade. And that's looking at the overall school numbers and not considering the breakdown of what K-3 looks like, but that would be the state allotment would be 5.
5 regular ed classroom teachers for 9 grade levels.
Yes.
Any other comments or questions? Dr. Phipps, you're finished with your...
That's all I have.
What is the pleasure of the board in regards to the matter of
and adopt scenario number 2 pursuant to the thorough study made by this Board of Education.
Is there a second?
I second the motion.
Okay, we have any comments or questions at this point in time?
Chairman Pennell, I do have a question.
Okay,
Perhaps I should direct it to Dr. Phipps. I'm not sure to whom I think that would be appropriate. Are there adjustments which can be made to scenario 2?
You know, I've looked at all 9 scenarios and thought if they were approved, what would we be looking at? And I've talked with our attorney, and there's some privileges that are provided in the policies that would allow me to do some of the things that I think are important. I think that we ought to have an open transfer period for all students who attended Oak Hill School as transfer students, and those students who were going to be going to Oak Hill on a transfer certainly should be allowed to have that open transfer period, that window open back up if that school's not going to be functioning. I also feel that there ought to be an open transfer period for all Oak Hill students to transfer to any other open school. And that you know, I would monitor Lower Creek as well, as we have some parents that have students who were at William Lenoir, and I think we would look at that on a case-by-case basis. I think we should allow students, if we're going with scenario 2, we should allow students to stay in the South Caldwell feeder pattern after Dudley Shoals, which would mean that they'd be allowed to attend Granite Falls Middle School and South Caldwell if they choose to do so through the transfer process. We would allow them to do that, and that would be an option that they would have available to them. I also feel like it's prudent on our part to waive the requirement that students sit out a year of athletic participation if they're a transfer student at the high school level. And we certainly would work with students on that as well, because they may not be in the same feeder pattern if the school's not is closed. From the work that we will do, you know, we will continue to monitor the school choice pattern for Granite Falls Middle to South Caldwell and William Lenoir to High Brighton for future school attendance zones. And I think that's important, because if there are groups of students that seem to be going toward Granite Falls and South Caldwell, if those lines are redrawn, then bus transportation could ultimately be provided there. We'll continue to monitor class size. We have no interest or desire to have classes that are extremely large, and we have to look at that in terms of our allotments and what our numbers look like, and we'll continue to monitor that. We'll also continue to monitor, as I've said earlier, bus routes, and if bus routes are excessively long or there are a large number of students, then we can adjust those. We have efficiency numbers and a formula that we try to work on, and we want to make sure that we operate as efficiently as we can. And while this is not part of the conversation, I think it does need to be mentioned publicly. At some point, I think we need to have a conversation with members of the community about the use of the facility. And I heard over and over again the value of the athletic program and the number of people, not just in the Oak Hill community, but from Dudley Shoals and other places that come to use that gym. And I would like to be able to work with the community and allow those recreational programs to continue. And we'd have to have a facility use and plan and some things like that, but certainly not a topic for tonight, but down the road to be able to do that. So those are the things, Ms. Edwards, that I feel like are important that need to be added to that. And I think that it's not a privilege provided. I think it's just the right thing to do to make sure that we're taking care of those students that are going to end up in a transition somewhere else.
Thank you.
Any other comments or questions?
Mr. Chairman, could I make a few
Sure.
comments? I just want to say to the Oak Hill community that I recognize how important your school is to you, and the students there are just as important as those anywhere else in this county. We are certainly not in a situation where we can do nothing and it get better on its own. And when a decision is made here in a few minutes, I anticipate that some will not agree with the board, depending on your stance in this matter. But please know that we have not and do not take this lightly. A lot of thought, study, and prayer has gone into the decision that's being made. I want what is best for Oak Hill students as well as all students in Caldwell County.
Chairman
Thank
Pennell,
you.
I have a few comments also.
Sure. Go ahead.
The first thing, the information you gave to Ms. Edwards, does that need to be part of a motion, or is that after just, you know, how would that be pursued? So should option 2 be voted in, those that are affected would have a peace of mind knowing not only did we talk about it, but it is actually something that they can feel good. If they can feel good, they can feel good to say, okay, we do have these choices. Does that need to be part of a motion?
No, because there's an allowance in our policy that says when that window closes, that a person can still apply if there are extraordinary circumstances, and certainly this would qualify as an extraordinary circumstance.
Okay,
Yes.
so, but it would only be eligible, because, just to make clarification of that it would only be eligible for the Oak Hill students, because if a child is somewhere else and they say, well, you know, we want this special opportunity, that is not the case. Now, granted, a person can file and it would go through the regular process, but this would be treated a little differently in the fact that they are, obviously, if option 2 is voted on and Oak Hill's closing, then those students are going to a school, and we have got lines there. They've been put out, and I understand that, but I just want the community to feel comfortable in knowing that their voice is going to be heard. It has been heard, and it will continue to be heard, but I want them to understand that. So if it doesn't need to be part of the motion.
And that would apply only to Oak Hill students or students who were transfers into Oak Hill.
Okay.
Yes.
So, Chairman Pennell, I still have a few comments.
Go ahead.
This has not been an easy process for me personally. My grandfather went to high school at Oak Hill High School. My parents went to school at Oak Hill High School. My dad still talks about asking my mom out on their first date in front of that school. My aunts, my uncle, my cousins, my nephews, I'm not going any further because I'll probably leave someone out, I probably already have. But they all, not all, but a lot of them went to that school. A lot of them still are at that school. A lot of them have been employees in that school. So as you can tell, I've got a lot of family and friends that have been through the school. They're still attending. But I also want people to know, because a lot of people have reached out to me about, you know, the position I'm in. But I want people to know that this decision has not been, it's not been easy for me, but it's not been easy for any board member, or the cabinet, or Dr. Phipps for that matter. None of it has been taken lightly. I want to say thank you to the board. You have given me space to make my thought patterns. You have listened to me ask questions from a personal perspective of Oak Hill School. And I thank you for allowing that to happen. Secondly, I'd like to thank Dr. Phipps and the cabinet. I have worn them out with asking questions and wanting information. And they have freely given me that. Not to sway this or that, nor has the board. They've not called me and said, you know, what do you think? It's almost like I've been on an island. And at first I thought it was because of COVID-19, but now I realize it's because of the decision that had to be made. And I thank you for that, but I also thank you for your support in allowing me to have time to process stuff. We as a board have looked at many options to balance our budget, other than just closing Oak Hill. That just came about. We have looked at balancing our budget prior to Dr. Phipps, but especially since Dr. Phipps has been here. We have had Budget Session 101 to make sure we are aware of where we're at. As Dr. Phipps alluded to, we have absorbed over 100 positions. I know the number is more than that, but I don't want to say a number that's incorrect, so I feel comfortable saying over 100 positions. We've done that by not rehiring or filling positions. Another thing that we have done is we've merged positions within the department. But as I think Chris alluded to, and Dr. Phipps has alluded to, a decision has to be made to balance our budget. Thank you.
Thank you. Any other comments? Any other questions?
I just want to say something about scenario 2 and scenario 3. Typically, I would be kicking and screaming about children going to an elementary school, for example, Dudley Shoals Elementary School, and not being with those same kids, all of the kids, for middle school and high school. But I guess the advisory committee, I respect their decision, and the scenario 2 allows these children to land at the high school they were expecting to land at. But I do appreciate the flexibility for families if they want to transition from Dudley Shoals Elementary to Granite Falls Middle School to South Caldwell. And when you said 5 teachers, that's powerful to think about how this school could operate in the best interest of kids, 9 grade levels with 5 teachers.
Any other comments? Any questions? We have a motion and a second. All those in favor of the motion, if you would, raise your hand. Any opposed? The motion is passed. It is unanimous. Does anyone have any other comment they want to make at this point in time?
I do. I like to talk, not really. But, so, and this is sort of feeding off of what Dr. Phipps had talked about earlier. The decision's been made. We are one school system. No matter who the child is, where they come from, they should be made to feel welcome. Them as well as their parents. I stress to everyone to be mindful of the changes that the students are going through, the parents are going through, we as a system are going through. I've talked to many of the parents and members in the Oak Hill community. And I know we as a board are mindful, but I really want to stress to the schools that these students go to. I hope it's a smooth transition. I'm going to tell a little story about a smooth transition. In the mid-'70s, I went to Dudley Shoals Elementary School. In the 7th grade, I don't know why, but before the 7th grade, my 7th grade year, we got students from Granite Falls Elementary School. They were from the Grace Chapel community. I don't know what the decision was. I was young and you know, I just knew where I was going to school the next year. And you know, was ready for recess. So we get to the 7th grade. The way I remember it was a smooth transition. And what brought that to light, I didn't really ever, I mean, I didn't think about it. I knew it and I remembered it. But before any of this discussion ever came up about closing a school, one of my good friends came, we were just talking one day, and he said, Joe, he said, you know, me being moved to Dudley Shoals Elementary School was one of the best things that ever happened to me. I have some of my best friends from that move happening. And I've sort of thought about that through this process, and my hope is that the children that move can at some point in their life have that same feeling. You know, we want to do everything we can to make the transition as smooth as possible for not only the students, but the parents and the staff. Because the staff doesn't get talked about a lot. And it's a transition for them. It's going to be a different work environment, a different faces, and I understand that the stress level that's out there. But we are one school system. We will and we should do everything that we can to make Caldwell County schools the best in the state. Thank you for allowing me time to talk.
Thank you, Joe. I think we can all say amen to that. We are certainly very interested in what is best for all of our students, all of our teachers, and all of our staff. And it's been a difficult time, and I appreciate the efforts of all people that have been involved in this, Dr. Phipps and his staff, and certainly the board members. And we'll just move forward and work together and make this transition as seamless as we possibly can. Anything else?
I do. On March 13th, about 2,500 students in exiting grades, 5th grade, 8th grade, seniors, 5th year at the early college. They left school that Friday, not knowing it would be the last day that they would be in that school and be with their classmates. I'm very sad for those 2,500, and I'm very sad for the 118 at Oak Hill School. And another story from the 70s. My high school, Hudson High School, was closed as a high school the year before I was going to graduate. I know it's not the same, but I do have some understanding of the feelings of uncertainty and sadness when communities are merged, but that too ended up being a smooth transition. And none of us want to close a school. I know I'm not supposed to speak for the board, but I think I can speak for the board. None of us want to close a school, but we just truly tried to make the best decision possible for all students in Caldwell County Schools.
Anyone else? Do I hear a motion that we
Chairman
adjourn?
Pennell, I do
Okay,
have a
go ahead.
comment I'd like to make if
Sure.
it's appropriate. Thank you for letting me speak. This board has received numerous expressions of compassion and caring. Your thoughts confirm the hopes and the dreams and the love
that we feel throughout this community for our children and our grandchildren. I am invested in public education because I have walked where each of you has walked. I'm a career educator who worked as a classroom teacher at both elementary and the middle school level. I've taught adults and conducted workshops at the community college. I served as a central office administrator for 9 years and was proudly the principal in the exit of my career in this public school system in Caldwell County. My children attended Caldwell County schools and received a quality education. I currently have 2 grandchildren in these schools. And for this reason, I feel I'm truly understanding and appreciation with all of the concerns that have been expressed to this board. This Board of Education has been entrusted by the citizens of Caldwell County to make these difficult decisions. And it's important to note that this board is in charge of 3 specific responsibilities. They're to hire the superintendent, which we are proud to have done, to approve policies, and to approve an annual budget. And as one of my colleagues said a moment ago, we arrived at this point in decision-making when auditors strongly advised this board to make the cuts that have been enumerated here tonight and to cease spending the fund balance. These have been extremely difficult and trying decisions. Decisions have been thoughtfully considered, and they have been tempered with caution because we had to deal with both compassion and caring for these children that I have loved throughout my career. They are not made without spending much time examining data, charts, facts, budget sheets, and all 9 of these scenarios. I am deeply appreciative of the involvement of the community task force that served us in this endeavor. I'm truly respectful and have read all 106 written statements that I have received. I have had in-person statements, voicemail, numerous emails, and have listened to all of them throughout this process, as it is our duty to do. I think all of our board members have done similarly and have done these same things. Finally, echoing some of the things that Joe said, it is my belief that through mutual trust and respect we have for each other on this board and throughout our professional colleagues in every school, that Caldwell County Schools will continue to love, to care for, and to educate every single student that enters these doors through the best of our ability. Thank you for giving me an opportunity to share.
Anything else? Do I hear a motion we adjourn?
I move we adjourn.
Is there a second?
Second.
All those in favor, say aye. Aye. Any opposed? This meeting is adjourned.